welcome everyone back to the channel. I am Zach, your host here on the Yo Bro Nation YouTube channel, and today I'm talking about not one movies, but two movies. Two movies that I am thankful for this year, in the year of our Lord 2020. I don't know. I'm talking about Avengers, Infinity War, and Endgame. Now, there's pseudo sequels to each other, right? So I figured, why not talk about them both? I love both movies. I actually did do a review initially for the first. For Endgame, I did a sort of review on that. That is in the iCard. That way. There we go. That way, in that corner right there. There it is. See, it's popping up right now. So that is there. You guys can go back. It's a quick, in the car with my sister and everyone kind of reacting to it. That is there, so you guys can check that out. But I did want to come back. I wanted to re-review that and talk about that. Now, no spoilers. Okay, mild spoilers. This is going to be a deep dive review because I'm thankful for it, so I just want to talk about it. That's all. I swear, that's all. But just talk about the scope of these two movies. I'm going to jump into that first. The scope of these two movies. What they set up going forward, which we haven't got to see really anything going forward in the MCU right now, of course, with the thing that's going around the world. Lots of things have been delayed, but I know before year's over, we're getting WandaVision, and eventually we're getting Falcon and Winter Soldier, we're getting Loki, we're getting She-Hulk, we're getting Moon Knight, we're getting Blade, so much content, we're getting Shang-Chi, Black Widow is eventually coming out, that'll be the first theatrical release, we're gonna get Thor, Love and Thunder, we're gonna get all these awesome properties coming off of these two movies, which were the conclusion of something that was 10, 11, 12 years in the making, if you count production and casting and filming and everything, all of it coming together. 20 plus MCU films, all of this coming in together to complete this. And I remember when Infinity War was coming out, I was so hyped. I just remember being in class and just talking to people, because I was going to college at the time, but talking to some people and seeing the trailers and then nothing being said. No spoilers, everything being kept down a tight lid. I'm so thankful. That was a 2-hour-long epic. Then you got Endgame. That was a 3-hour-long epic. And they go in a way that you're just like, you love it, and it's bringing all these characters in, and especially Infinity War. That was such a large cast, and the way they did it was actually well done. You were missing a few characters who probably could have had a little more screen time. A lot of screen time dedicated to Thor and Gamora and the rest of the Guardians. But then you had someone if I had one big issue with that first one, would be the fact that Cap didn't get a more screen time, but a lot of Tony and Peter and Doctor Strange, those were your main pieces, right? And then everyone else just kind of fit in, just kind of did what they had to do. So that's what made that first one really good. And you did get some stuff with Wakanda. You got the big epic battle right at the end of the movie that was just fantastic, where everyone showed up. One of the best parts for that movie for me, just a little bit in a scene, is when they bring in Cap, and they do bring in Black Widow and Falcon. How when they finally do show up, how they're introduced, you see the train going by, and here comes Cap just walking through, and you're just like, oh, I remember being in the theater and the entire theater erupting. And both movies really, are able to invoke such a reaction. You go from excited to nervous to, by the end of Infinity War, just absolute despair. You're just like, oh, I see. It was probably one of the best, if not the best, cinematic experience I've ever had. And I've seen Star Wars in theaters. I've seen the other MCU. I saw the first Avengers in theaters. I saw Endgame in theaters. And not to say that Endgame wasn't great. It was a great theater experience, but it didn't have that. It didn't have the same feeling as Infinity War did. Like, that was such a heavy experience. And it just, the characters, seeing them all interact, like seeing the Guardians meet Tony. Now, there were some boneheaded moments in this movie. It's not a perfect movie at all. There's a couple scenes where it's like Peter Quill, Star-Lord, if he would have just kept his emotions in check, a lot of what happened would have been avoided. But Peter couldn't keep... Sorry, I'll just call him Star-Lord. Star-Lord could not keep his emotions in check in this movie long enough for them to get the gauntlet off of Thanos. And there's something else I want to talk about. Thanos... Well, that to me is probably the biggest thing. There's a couple plot holes that kind of didn't, needed to be used. It was a little slow at points, but yeah. But let me talk about Thanos. Because you could talk about him when it comes to both movies. I think Thanos' use in the first one, in Infinity War, was much better than it was in Endgame. That would be Endgame's biggest flaw. Is their use of Thanos, I don't think was as good. It wasn't bad, but you didn't feel that overwhelming presence of Thanos throughout the movie. Because if I'm being honest, Infinity War... Let me just take this off here. It's still sitting up here. Infinity War was, for sure, that was Thanos' movie. Without doubt. Hands down, that was Thanos' movie. He was the antagonist, but he was the antagonist that we were, in a way, following. You get the great acting from Robert Downey Jr., from Chris Evans, from everyone else, everyone in the cast, Scarlett Johansson, all of them, Mark Ruffalo. Like, yeah, he was interesting. Seeing him go between Hulk, trying to go to Hulk, but Hulk refusing, that was a bit of a stupid storyline, but I get it. It was cool to see him in the Hulkbuster. I enjoyed that. But I loved that first one a lot. And I'm not saying that the second one, I know I keep referring to him as the first and the second one were really like the third and the fourth movie in the Avengers series, but damn if it just wasn't interesting. It's a contrast. They were basically sequels to one another, even though they said they weren't. I don't know. The Russo brothers, what they created between these two movies was everything you wanted in a culmination of a series, right? And I think it was a nerd's wet dream. Like, the first one, like I said, Infinity War was very much and I'm talking a lot about this one because I didn't get to talk about that one in a video. So I'm really like diving into this one a little bit more. And then I'm going to touch on Endgame a little bit, but not as much. But with Infinity War, it was a lot of characters, very focused on a certain set, Iron Man and so on and so forth, I've already said. And then Thanos being the really big thing. I just thought that was... I really thought it was really well done. I think Endgame was the stronger of the two movies, because it focused more on this certain little set. There wasn't as many characters, plus the ending was like fucking epic, but I digress. This was such an amazing movie. It like I said, invoked all these emotions that you just go through the roller coaster, right? Just the whole roller coaster from the start to the finish, everything you wanted. And I don't know, I just found it to be awesome. That's the best, honestly, the best way I can put it. It was just awesome. Again, terrific performances. The score was great. The Russo brothers and the direction was fantastic. I just liked. And the whole crux being to try to get that last stone and having the whole thing. And well, obviously, the trying to get all the stones was obviously the whole idea of the whole movie. But when they're trying to go to the end to get that one last stone, and how it ended with the snap, and you're like, wait, what? This is actually happening? Because you think for a second, Thor comes in with the freaking axe, and he's about to get him. Stormbreaker. I remember the name, Stormbreaker. But he's coming in there, and you're like, he's gonna... should have aimed for the head. And you're like, no. And then it's just like this big, huge tonal change, because you're all action to completely calm. And then like the wind, you could hear no music. You just hear the wind rustling. And they're breathing. And then all of a sudden, they just start to disintegrate. And you're like, what's happening? And it was great. It was great. And it left you feeling, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? Thanos snapped, and then Thanos left. And you're just like, I don't know what to do. And then you got Tony left in space, and you're just thinking to yourself, what is going to happen to him? Just give me a second here. I have to find something real quick, because I saw a quote, and I'm going to see if I can find this quote real quick. If I do, I'm definitely going to give it to you. No, I don't see it. But yeah, Josh Brolin, he was pretty fantastic as Thanos. I don't see it. But just the way that they were able to end that. So yeah, you get Tony left on Titan with Nebulous, and then that transitions you to the next one where you see Tony and Nebulous on the ship. They tried to repair it as much as they can, trying to get back to Earth, but they're hobbling and they're not making it. And you see they kind of build a little bit of a rapport, but you can see Tony being in space with really nothing to eat. It's all taking effect on him to the point where Tony's more or less has accepted his fate. And then Captain Marvel shows up, Brie Larson, and I do not hate Brie Larson. Please hear me out. I don't hate Brie Larson. I'm not one of those people. I think her character was done well. She wasn't used as a lot because, honestly, she's so OP, you probably would have just been able to defeat Thanos pretty easily. But then they show that actually she can't stand up to Thanos. So we get that. But we also see the Avengers go to Thanos and kill Thanos after this. They straight up kill him. And then we get the opening title, and you're like, well, fuck, they killed Thanos. What now? What is this movie about? And then we learn the plot. And again, I'm giving mild spoilers to a movie that's a year plus old. Just saying. I'll even put it in the title. Mild spoilers. So we go to the future. Paul Rudd, Ant-Man, gets out of the quantum realm and doesn't realize that 5 years have gone by. Actually, no, the best shot is the very opening shot of this movie, where you see Hawkeye, Jeremy Renner's character, Clint, playing with his kids and having a little picnic with his kids, and then they just vanish after the snap. And then you jump forward. But, good God, this movie. T'Challa's gone. They're all gone. And speaking of T'Challa, I want to say, although obviously really, really late, but this is my first opportunity to really say anything. Rest in peace to Chadwick Boseman. Great man, great actor, fantastic roles, and not just in the Marvel, but I've seen 42, and I did watch, I can't think of the name of the movie he did before this, 21 Bridges. Both fantastic films, by the way. Rest in peace, man, and Wakanda forever, I guess. I'm not going to say too much. I'm not really one to speak on it. But you get into that movie, and like I said, I did the little reaction review thing for that. And if you go and watch that, then you're seeing with the Avengers dealing with life as it is. You know, Cap is kind of like a guidance counselor in a way. Like, he sits in these group meetings and lets people talk. So he's kind of like leading meetings for people who have been affected by the snap. They called it something else, the blip. I think they call it the blimp. The blip. I don't know. I think the snaps just sounds cooler too. And you see that the Avengers are out still, ones who are still remaining, like the core Avengers, are still out doing things. And you've got Natasha kind of in charge, kind of keeping track of things. And then they're talking. And then Scott shows up. And he cuts up this idea, and they go and they find Clint, and you find out Clint's been killing people. And so honestly, they do time jumping in this movie. They figure out a way to go through time. So they go to different places in time in the MCU timeline, and they basically make it splinter off into a separate timeline from what was our timeline. It was going this way, and then they just went, boop, and it just kept going, right? And I guess it's confusing. It's confusing to follow in the movie. But then they get all the stones, they make their own gauntlet. And Hulk is now like, almost like Grey Hulk. It's Banner, but in the Hulk body, but he's not gray. But he's super smart. So anyways, so they're all up, they're doing all this stuff. They come back, and we get Thanos from 2014, who's like, oh, because Nebula has memories from the future, 9 years in the future, actually. So then you got to go back, and it's like, oh dear, this is so confusing. And it is, it's very confusing. That's probably one of the detriments of the movie, is how confusing it was. But they gave you time to flesh it out. 3 hours they gave this movie, which was, I think, a really good run time. It's like, each act was about an hour, and each act built to something else. And then you get to that last act. Once they got the gauntlet, they snap. Everyone's apparently back. They finally get the snap done. They build up to this. But the Nebula that we knew that was helping everyone, that was one of the main players of this movie, was taken by Thanos. And then he sent the 2014 version of Nebula, who then blows everything up. Leads them to where everything gets blown up. And that starts the third act, the big fucking battle. And it's got one of the best freaking scenes ever in a movie. When Thor is about to get his ass killed by Thanos, because Thanos fights Cap, Thor, and Iron Man, because Clint's trying to keep, the gauntlet safe, and because Thanos, like, if I get this, I can snap and put everything back to how I want it. So they're trying to keep that from him. And, okay. Before I go any further, speaking of Clint, Hawkeye, there's a scene in this movie where they have to go and get the stone where Gamora died. And, of course, Gamora from 2014 is in this movie, and Peter, is going to follow her by the end of this movie. So that sets up for the next one, for Guardians. But the Soul Stone, they go get the Soul Stone. and one of them has to die. One of them has to let the other one die to obtain the stone, and they squabble over it, and you see Black Widow pass away. She kills herself so Clint can get it. It's a very emotional scene. It's another movie where everything just, it's the ebb and flow. It's up and it's down. But yeah, so we get into the third act. These three are fighting Thanos, and Fat Thor. I finally have a Thor body. Yay me. He's down, and you see him reaching Mjolnir. Thor's hammer. I can't speak today. So Thor's hammer is moving, and you see Thor, because he went back in time, back to, I think, 2012. He went back to Thor the Dark World, to that period. So he took his hammer and brought it back with him, because I think Stormbreaker was broken. Anyways, he's trying to get the hammer, and it comes flying, goes past him, past Thanos, right into Cap's hand. The whole crowd just erupts, and he's like, I knew it! And fucking Cap with that shield and with the hammer, fucking shit up. Awesome! And then right when you think, because they fight, but they end up still being beat down by Thanos and his army. You're like, oh shit. And you hear just a Cap. And here comes Falcon. And here comes T'Challa. And here comes everyone through all these portals. And you're just like, oh my god. Doctor Strange knew exactly what he was doing when he let himself be killed and gave away that stone. He knew this was the ending. This was the one. And here comes almost the entire MCU. And it's amazing. It leads to even a bigger battle. This is like an hour long of just fighting in battles. It's so amazing. And I loved it. I loved it so much. But our guys win, ultimately. Unfortunately, Tony has to pass away. Tony gets the glove. He does, I am Iron Man, and snap. And there's a deleted scene of him talking to his daughter. Because Tony ended up having a daughter. Him and Pepper had a kid, of course. And you get to that, though. They cut that out. So you see it, and everyone's sad, obviously. But he flips away all the bad guys that were there. So, yay, Avengers. Oh, and we get the Avengers Assemble. Oh, my God, I loved it. I loved this movie. That was so sad at the end, though. But I still loved this movie walking out. I still do prefer Infinity War over Endgame, just as the story and how it played out. But I am not sad or upset at either of them. I think they were both amazing. So you get Tony's funeral, and even in death, they do a little quip about Tony, because they take his reactor that he had in his chest, and they put it on this little thing with a little fire, proof that Tony Stark did have a heart. And he, Happy's talking to his kid, and he's like, "What's your favorite food?" "Hamburgers." "Oh yeah, well your dad loved hamburgers." I'm like, "Oh my God, that's so cute." My God, I know this is a long review, guys, and I do apologize, but my God, I loved these movies. I didn't take no notes at all, because how many times I've watched this. I'm actually going to go watch them after this, because I just love them that much. But it was if the MCU ended here, it'd been perfect. Now, of course, like I already pointed out, it's continuing, but just the way that these movies ended this 10-year saga to set up the next 10 years. Fantastic Four, X-Men, all of this stuff that's going to come. I'm so ready. But that's it, guys. I've rambled on long enough. All the cast was great. Between both movies, it was awesome. And I am excited to see what's to come between Disney Plus and the theatrical movies once we do get back to movie theaters. But hey, in the comments, Let me know what you thought. Which was your favorite of the two? What was your favorite fight scene? The end of Infinity War or the end of Endgame? Let me know. I know it's like apples to oranges here, right? They were both pretty awesome, but... Or maybe you didn't like them. If you didn't, let me know. But I'm Zach with the Yo Bro Nation YouTube channel. Remember, everyone, stay happy, stay healthy, and remember, love each other. Join the nation.